Okay. Okay. So then we're going to go down that way. Sorry, I'm just getting my notes together. Good evening. From the House of Songo, this is Gaytopix. My life. These are real life stories, real life confessions, real life truths, actual events that happened to me in my lifetime. Due to the graphic nature and sensitive language of this program, viewer discretion is highly advised. I'm your host, Kenny Cruz, and this is Gaytopix, My Life. Remember, you're always in the mix with Gaytopix. I want to clarify something here because as I continue to confess and continue to reveal and unmask my identity and what I feel is my true authentic self to the camera, because there's no views, no one's watching, no one even is sharing this, no one is actually seeing this, so it's just me and a camera. And I've been doing this for over 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years now. So as I continue to slowly reveal myself and confess my life and what people have done to me throughout my life to make me and shape me and mold me into the person that is sitting in front of the camera confessing these traumatic events, I'm troubled by the sheer fact that no one is actually paying attention. Although I am now alarmed because it makes me more reluctant to release these videos and this footage, because Mayor Adams, someone who I did not vote for, but was duly elected because of this new system called rank choice voting. So whoever was in the first place, I don't know who was, and nobody knows who was voted, in the first place, but did not actually garner more votes than Mayor Adams did. So their votes went to Mayor Adams, making him the top tier and essentially elected mayor. So Mayor Adams is now the mayor of New York City. There are several flaws in his administration in which I already have seen, and he's already doubled down on some of his legislation laws that he passed that were't working, like the garbage bins that he was going to put the trash in. And I've said this in the past episode of Gaytopix My Life, that I voted for Garcia, who is the head of sanitation department here in New York City, because I knew and I saw her physically, in a press conference during a blizzard or a hurricane, in that position, standing at that podium, knowing what to do because she was the head of sanitation. And as you know, in a hurricane and a blizzard, the sanitation department is key to cleaning the streets, especially here in New York City. So I knew she was going to be ahead of her game, and she was going to be a top tier in knowing how to handle that crisis. Unfortunately, she was not elected, nor was she even given a position in the Adams administration, which I'm kind of conflicted on, what happened there? So when Mayor Adams was elected in January, all of these garbage piles started to be on the streets. And everywhere you look, there's garbage. Garbage, 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 garbage. And of course, what happens to that? That leads to the rat population. Not only has the rat population in New York increased because of the new infrastructures from restaurants dining out, with their sheds and stuff like that on the street, which I actually like because it gives more revenue and more seats to the actual restaurant, But it actually poses a problem because of the people eating there and the rats and stuff, so they leave food behind. So it's kind of like a catch-22, So kind of conflicted in that perspective. But as far as revenue and helping the restaurant business, I believe that it's a good thing. But then Mayor Adams came with a new legislation and a new law that like, okay, well, we're going to clean the streets and we're not going to allow garbage on the streets until after 8 p.m. So any building or commercial building or store or anything like that that has trash for pickup, they have to put it on the curb after 8 p.m. But before he even put that into perspective, because that was his second legislation. His first legislation was to actually put a garbage bin, like an actual bin where you put the bags in. So I was like, well, when I walk my dog, I see like 40, 50 bags in one little particular area. So how is one bin gonna handle all that trash? So of course it didn't work. So he had to come up with an alternative or a plan B. So his plan B now is that you cannot put trash on the curb until after 8 p.m. for pickup. But even that poses a problem now because of the alternate side street parking. So it's not working. Moreover, he just passed today a law that he wants to put involuntarily commit homeless people who are sleeping on the subways or streets or wherever they are, involuntarily committing them into a mental institution or a mental hospital. That is not the answer to solving the homeless problem. I can tell you right now, that is not the answer. The answer is not the mental health problem. That is the whole purpose of this series. I've been talking about mental health throughout this entire series and how it overlaps and how people lack the knowledge of what mental health is and how to deal with someone in a mental health crisis and what actually is a mental health crisis. So when you see somebody homeless on the subway, on the streets, or something like that, sleeping or, begging for spare change, you're gonna have EMTs, social workers, police, even subway conductors, involuntarily commit them into a mental hospital. That is not the answer. Do you not have common sense? After all these episodes and this series, I've made some really damning and crucial and critical criticism against the mental health system and how it operates. And I put myself in literally like the bullet's eye, because what I confessed and what I've done said throughout this series, my life, if someone was actually watching, I probably would have been committed long time ago. I would have never been able to get to this point of my series. But that's the whole point. those who are not knowledgeable or have the experience in the mental health field are complicit in causing more harm to the person than they are helping the person or individual in the crisis. So therefore, Mayor Adams calling on for these, homeless people to be involuntarily committed and leaving it up to a doctor to decide if they could be released or not on their own recognizance is frivolous, ridiculous, shameful, and stigmatizing every single individual in this city. There are so many levels to why someone may be sleeping on a subway, or why someone may be homeless, or why someone may be asking for spare change. It doesn't all categorize or fall under the umbrella of a mental health illness. And I have a serious problem with this new legislation because of that. I told you a story of which when I was on Exodus, and I came home from Exodus, and my Aunt Renee would not let me in her house after finding out that my parents had passed away and I no longer had a home, and I became homeless, and I was on Exodus from the Army, in my uniform, mind you, and sleeping on the subway because I had no place to go. Does that make me mentally insane? Or mentally disturbed? No, I don't have a next of kin. I don't have an emergency contact. I don't have none of that. But this stranger is going to tell me and involuntarily put me through a system in which it's probably going to make me have a mental health crisis because I don't want to be in that situation, or anyone that I would know would want to be put in that situation where they have to be forced into a setting where they don't want to belong, It's just so disturbing, and I don't know how far this new legislation will go, but I don't see it going far, and I'm really disturbed by that simple fact. Why don't I run for Congress? Seriously, because it seems like I have more common sense than any of these people who are duly elected. And that bothers me because here you are, like, Twitter is now taken over by Elon Musk, and all of these Republicans all of a sudden have an influx of followers. What the fuck? And then Kanye West is now sitting, having dinner with you-know-who, the one-term, twice-impeached former president of the United States. What the hell is wrong with you? You can't make up your own music, so you want to do a publicity stunt by having dinner with this, person that nobody likes or wants to be affiliated with? What the hell is wrong with you? And the only reason you may hate me for this, and you may condemn me for this, I don't care because no one is watching this. Ye, or Kanye, or whatever the fuck he wants to be called, is only famous because of auto-tune. And he did not create that. Cher did. Cher did. Know your culture. Know your culture. Do you believe in life after love? That was the first auto-tune song in history. And it just so happened to be a gay icon. Cher. So, like RuPaul says, you can copy others, just like Kanye did, but make it your own. So he did. So instead of singing, he's rapping, but still using auto-tune like Cher did. And Madonna eventually followed Cher, and so many others, in the music industry, including Beyonce and Taylor Swift, and I can go on for days. But auto-tune is very common now in the music industry. But Ye did not create that. Just like his sneakers. His sneakers are made in China. His sneakers are made in China. Just like the iPhone. That was something that baffled my mind all in itself. Because here you are, the one-term, twice impeached former president of the United States, condemning China for this and that and calling it the Kung Flu. And Kung Flu, it came from China. China. They came from China and they came to attack America. I'm telling you, it's huge. 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 I didn't want to say nothing because it would cause controversy. Controversy. So I just said inject bleach. Bleach will help it out. So here you are, literally condemning China, saying the COVID-19 virus came from, China, but you're tweeting. Oh my God, I can't believe people are so stupid. Here you are tweeting on an iPhone that is made in China. What the fuck? Seriously? How can people be so naive and dumb? I just don't understand. But this just goes to show you how people in the positions, like I said, they're white coats, the positions in the white coats are not fully knowledgeable of what they're actually doing or what their job entails. So this whole notion of involuntary committing people into a mental institution because they're simply on the streets and have no place to go is wrong on so many levels. And Mayor Adams should really reconsider that. I don't understand. Why would you even put that and sign that into legislation? It makes no sense. No sense. Sorry I went on a tangent there. If you look at the signs of certain things like this series, My Life, you can see and read between the lines of what is actually transpiring. You don't need to be a brain surgeon or have a degree or a PhD to see common sense. Common sense. That's all it boils down to. I hate to admit it, but me and Ye or Kanye, whatever the fuck he wants to be called, have similar traits too. Like I said in the past episode, that I have similar traits to those who commit mass shootings and who are prolific. What's the word? Prolific. Who are known serial killers. Put it that way. And who have committed these heinous crimes. And I'm not shy of that. I'm not going to be shy of that because that's who I am. And that's part of me. And just because I have similar characteristics and similar traits, and maybe even resemble some of those people who've committed these heinous crimes, does that make me a murderer or someone who was actually going to commit a crime? But the more I'm stigmatized, and the more I'm shunned, and the more I'm criticized, and the more I'm belittled and berated and ignored and hated and blacklisted, and I can go on and on with so many things that people have done to me, but the point is, with all those things that people have done to me, will that make me seek revenge? I guess we have to wait to find out. Or has it happened already? You're a crazy bastard. I got my notes here. My trusty notes. So, I wanted to touch base and do, I guess, a revised version of a previous episode I did in which I compared myself to the infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. And the only reason why I did that episode was because of Ryan Murphy's #1 series on Netflix, Dahmer. So I wanted to, everyone's talking about it because it's the #1 series for like 2 months now. And so I wanted to, comment on that. And so this episode is called Doing a Dahmer. Doing the Dahmer, should I say? Or Doing a Dahmer. I think when he was in high school, they referenced Doing a Dahmer. So, yeah, this episode is called Doing a Dahmer. So let me do my intro. Oh, my nose is running. It's bleeding. Okay, ready? Where's my pen? So I need to make notes. Okay. From the House of Songo, this is Gaytopix, My Life. I'm Kenny Cruz, your host. And these are real life stories, real life confessions, real life truths, actual events that happened to me in my lifetime. Due to the graphic nature and sensitive language, shit. Yeah. You're just fucking up all over the place. Good evening. From the House of Songo, this is Gaytopix, My Life. I'm your host, Kenny Cruz, and these are real life stories, real life confessions, real life truths, actual events that happened to me in my lifetime. Due to the graphic nature and sensitive language of this program, viewer discretion is highly advised. All rights reserved. Copyright 2022. I'm Kenny Cruz, your host, and this is Gaytopix, My Life, Doing a Dahmer. Remember, you're always in the mix with Gaytopix. One thing for certain, not only do I have a striking resemblance to that of Jeffrey Dahmer, there are several things in which I actually find myself at one with him, or we share the same values and have gone through the same experiences. And I'm somewhat concerned because perhaps that will lead me to become an infamous and notorious, unnoticeable serial killer committing crimes against gay men. Because I am gay myself. Although people don't know it, or when they do know it, I'm criticized to this day for being gay or effeminate or, liking men or being attracted to men. I can remember I think it was like a month ago, I was in a cafe and I was sitting outside sipping an iced coffee, and some Jamaican guy asked me why I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm waiting for some dick. I haven't had sex since 2012, and I heard this was a spot to pick up dick, or cock. Let's use cock because it would not be censored by YouTube. So I was told that I can pick up cock there, and I sat there, and the guy was asking me why I was sitting there, and I was like, well, I'm looking to hook up for some cock. You fucking faggot, get the fuck out of here. This business does not want you here. It was some type of like West Indian like jamba juice where they served like these organic juices from the Caribbean, and of course as we all know with Caribbean men, not ye as in Kanye, but ye as in like a foot long. So Caribbean men are my priority, but needless to say, that's not the point of this whole doing a Dahmer series. Or episode, I should say, because this series is an original Gaytopix series called My Life. And I'm Kenny Cruz. Remember, you're always in the mix with Gaytopix. Okay, so I made several bullets here about Jeffrey Dahmer in my notes, and I like to go over them right now. One is that he had a troubled childhood. I've explained that in several episodes. Mommy's a narcissist. Dow M for mommy. Mommy is a murderer. I've said so many things about my childhood that were so traumatizing and so horrific for a child to go through. And I'm still amazed that I'm still sitting here today talking to a camera. But I guess that's why I'm talking to a camera, because of what happened to me as a child. It was not known that he was sexually abused like I was, but he did come from a dysfunctional family, because his mother, like my mother, had a mental illness. And I think my mother's mental illness was due in part to the addiction she had to prescription drugs that she was stealing from the hospital in which she worked as an RN, Long Beach Memorial Hospital. I don't know if you know this or not, but throughout this entire series, I want you to read the descriptions, because descriptions go into detail of what the episode is. And more often it reveals more information than what the actual episode does. But in the episode, because what happened to me was that when Bill Clinton, my dog, not the actual president, but my dog Bill Clinton died, he was my rock. And once he passed away, all of these memories that had been hidden and been gone essentially from my, and disappeared from my memory, were now resurfacing. And they were coming in like at a rapid speed, and I was getting confused as to like, did this really happen? What's going on? Or you know, oh, this makes more sense now, and all the pieces were starting to fit together. And so I knew my mom as a teenager, you know, before I went into the army. I didn't know that as a young teen, but I knew that as an older teen, like, you know, 17, 16, 17, 18. I knew that because I was more knowledgeable of what was actually happening. More importantly, I don't know if you ever been to or you've seen the inside of a pharmacy or what's behind the counter of the pharmacy. When you go to the pharmacy to fill your prescriptions, you can actually see the back of the pharmacy. So when you see the back of the pharmacy, you see all the pill bottles and stuff like that. And they're not little pill bottles like we get in the yellow thing. I wish I had a pill bottle now, but I don't. But they don't come in those little brown things. They come in these like gallons, you know, if not liters of bottles full of pills. So it's easy for someone to actually break into a pharmacy and just take one bottle and have maybe 500 oxycodones, you know. So it's easy for someone to do that because they come in these huge bottles. And I remember being a teenager, and there was I don't know what was actually happening or what I needed her for. Maybe it was to sign a permission slip or something like that for a trip, the senior trip or something, or a report card. It was something that I needed her signature for. And that simple act of her signing a piece of paper was like trying to take candy from a baby. It was so hard to do, and I couldn't believe it. To the point where I was literally forging her signature because I wrote exactly like her. My signature and everything was exactly like hers. So I literally started forging my own notes and report cards, unbeknownst to the school, because it was a public school. But I did come from a troubled background and a troubled childhood because my parents, particularly my mom, had a mental illness. And my stepfather was a crackhead. My father abandoned the family at 7. When I was 7, because he found out that my mother had cheated on him and gotten pregnant. He stayed until I was 7. Me and my sister until we were 7. But then she got pregnant again with another baby from a different man, and then that's when he left. Never once did she ever collect child support from this man or from my supposed father. So she had to rely on the system and other men. So she would go out with random men and have sex with random men. Sound familiar? Your mother and father shape you to the person you are today. My parents divorced at a young age, when I was a young age, at 7 years old. Just like Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know if he was 7, but he was around that age, like a toddler age. So his parents divorced, and essentially that's what actually, they say, caused his, you know, illness or addiction to murder. I don't know, because I don't want to call it like an addiction, because it's not an addiction. He was doing and committing these murders to sexually gratify himself. Now, as gay men and anyone in the LGBTQ community, we all have ways of sexually gratifying ourselves. There's that you tie a belt around your neck to stop the oxygen levels from going into your brain to give you a better orgasm. There's also poppers. There's also leather. There's also kink. There's also S&M. There's so many labels and things like that men get their kicks off and get their gratification off sexually from. So I can't say that was a problem for him, but murdering was. And murdering was a problem because he could not. I'm not sticking up for this man because he's dead, so I'm not sticking up for him. But the more research I've done, the more I understood him because, like I said, I have similar characteristics and traits of Jeffrey Dahmer. So the more I researched him, the more I understood why he did certain things. Now, I'm going to go on. My mom was addicted to pills, just like his mother was. There was constant violence in the household, just like his parents did. Even with his stepmother, there was still that violence in the household. Even his actual biological mother left him in the house alone and took his younger brother away from the home and left completely and abandoned him. Sound familiar? My life. I just alluded to that he was left in his house all alone, unbeknownst to his father, and his mother knew but didn't care because she left and disappeared. And essentially, that is somewhat what happened to me. I was left alone all the time. I'm still left alone all the time. And there's a famous quote from Pee Wee Herman's Big Top Adventure. I'm a loner, Dottie. I'm a rebel. I'm just picturing it now. Wait, let me see if I can do it. I'm a loner, Dottie. A rebel. I can't believe I just did Pee Wee Herman. I'm a loner, Dottie. A rebel. But yes, I'm a loner. And because I was a loner, I didn't get along with my family or my parents. I'm laughing because I'm trying my best not to cry, and you can see me tearing up. But because you can see me tearing up, you can now clearly see I have two different eye colors. They were both the same color at one time. And whenever they would change colors, because my eyes change colors with whatever I'm wearing or whatever mood I'm feeling, they would change the same colors in both eyes. But since I became blind in my right eye, as you can see, they're two different colors. Hazel, or this is, yeah, that's more like hazel, and this is more like green or blue. Yeah, I would say that's blue and this is hazel. So they're different, you know, and Jeffrey Dahmer had the same thing. But it was known that Jeffrey Dahmer wore contacts, which is why he had different eye colors. But often when he wore his contacts, he had different colors in his eyes. So one eye would be a different color and the other eye would be a different color. And I thought there was a striking resemblance to me and Jeffrey Dahmer, because like how many people can say that? I just moving along. I served in the army. Although I did not go to Germany, I went to Iraq and Afghanistan, but I did serve in the army, just like Jeffrey Dahmer did. Unlike him, though, I did not commit any sexual or gay acts in the army because it was banned, and I did not want to be dishonorably discharged. Although he was dishonorably discharged because of his drinking problem, and then later it came out, I actually saw on YouTube Surviving Jeffrey Dahmer. Like that series, Surviving R. Kelly. So this one was Surviving Jeffrey Dahmer, and the victim that spoke was his roommate in Germany when he served in the army. I don't remember or recall why he never actually called the police or even sent him to what is that base? I want to say Guantanamo Bay, but that's for refugees. Fort Leavenworth. I don't know why he was not sent to Fort Leavenworth. And Fort Leavenworth is worse than Rikers Island. Worse than Rikers Island. Can you imagine anything worse than Rikers Island? Well, picture Fort Leavenworth. And those are American citizens who served in the armed forces. They're not like people from other countries. They're American citizens. That's why Guantanamo Bay is for people who are from other countries. Whereas Fort Leavenworth is for people who committed crimes in the military that are American citizens. And it's worse than jail, or so I hear. So you don't want to go there. You don't even want to look at it. You don't even want to go bother by it. So just stay away. So because his parents didn't get along with each other, Jeffrey Dahmer did not get along with his parents. And like I said and alluded to earlier, he was left alone and was essentially a loner and doing things to garner attention in school, like drink. I didn't drink in high school. I don't even think drinking was allowed. Like I don't even recall like us even having the ability to drink soda or water or even a thing of milk. I'm lactose intolerant, but still I'm trying to recall if I ever. We didn't wear uniforms that like they do now, but I don't recall like having like snacks and stuff like that or drinks at my desk while we were in school. So I don't know how Jeffrey Dahmer was able to actually get alcohol into school, let alone drink something at his desk. I don't know how that happened, but it was in the 70s, so there it is. So as opposed to and serving in the army, because it was the 1970s and because I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, gay was not okay. Even to this day in Florida with Ron DeSantis, it's not okay to be gay. Even now they're trying to pass a law for it, to legalize same-sex marriage and codify same-sex marriage and interracial marriage. When was that ever a problem? I don't understand that. Again, I'm giving you a perspective of my timeline here, or what day it is, so you can know where I am. So, because of the fact that there was such a stigma with being gay and homosexual, I had to have sex on the low. Or the people that I had sex with were not out of the closet and were extremely cautious with who they hung around with. Like, I had to dress a certain way, I had to act a certain way, I had to deepen my voice. Even if I looked somewhat suspect of being gay, they would like stand me up or avoid me, or not even want to be bothered with me, or not associate with me with their friends, or just have sex with me and have a one-night stand, and that was it, and I never saw them again, which seemed to be a common theme in my life. So no one could actually accept me actually having the courage and strength to come out and be okay with being gay and my sexual orientation. But no one around me, the white coats, could not accept my sexual orientation. Neighbors today can't accept my sexual orientation. Even the community itself cannot accept my sexual orientation because I'm a bottom. And bottoms are the 99% population of the community. And there's only 1% of tops. So everybody that you meet is probably a bottom. But just because we're both bottoms, does that mean that we can't be friends? Or we can't hang out? Or we still can't play? There's a thing called a two-headed dildo. There's a thing called fisting. There's a thing called, an escort. There's a thing called, Viagra. There's so many things that you can do to fix the problem, but because you're labeled that bottom, nobody wants to associate with you because they themselves are a bottom. That's the stigmatization in the community itself. In the community itself. I was often ignored. Like I said and alluded to earlier, Jeffrey Dahmer did things in high school to garner attention. Like, he would act like he had Tourette's or something like that and get people to laugh and pay attention to him, and then stand in pictures that he was not supposedly supposed to be in, so he would get the attention and notoriety instead of being unnoticed. But then he ended up moving into the ghetto, where he went unknown and seemingly unknown. Like, no one knew or even considered him to be a murderer or serial killer. I don't even think they even wondered why a white man was moving to a black neighborhood. Like me, I live in a ghetto. No one questions me why I live in a ghetto, but they're always questioning me for money because of the color of my skin. But if you had actually common sense, I live in the same neighborhood that you do. Bitch, I'm poor just like you. I wouldn't be living here if I was not poor. Oh my goodness. Jeffrey Dahmer was also bullied at school. Had sex with gay men at bathhouses. I did as well. I had sex in, I don't remember the one in DC, but I went frequently here to the one in New York City called the West Side Club, and there's also another one called the East Side Club. And then I also went to one in London. I don't recall the name of that one either, but there's several bathhouses that I went to trying to find, sex. But even though I was the most muscular and the most sexiest, and I'm not bragging about that. I mean that literally. Because, as I said in so many episodes of this series, this Gaytopix Original Series, My Life, that I've been called sexy every single day of my life. Every single day of my life, someone told me how beautiful I was. But yet, I was alone. And no one ever loved me. It's a big difference of saying you're sexy as opposed to actually loving me. So therefore, I was bullied at school because I was effeminate. And I got into many fights, and I was jumped a couple times because I lived in a ghetto and still do to this day. But I would do things to make myself not known. Like I would avoid certain situations and do things at certain times just to avoid confrontation with those who are ignorant or biased toward my sexual orientation or color of my skin. So I would do things at certain times and avoid certain locations and go in certain areas and certain places just so I can avoid the conflict. And I also acted and pretended to be something other than what I actually was. I had to pretend to walk a certain way. I had to deepen my voice. I can remember screaming at the top of my lungs in a construction site that they were building a new building on. Screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to deepen my voice because it was so feminine. It didn't work. Because I was bullied so much for being feminine. But moving on to my characteristics and traits of those of known serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. Like I said, I look very similar to him. I'm not even going to put on the glasses. I'm not. Because I have them, but I'm not going to put them on. So you can see, you can even see a striking resemblance now, but I'm not going to put them on so you can actually see how remarkable the resemblance is. We both have blonde hair, blue eyes, fit bodies. We're very attractive and attracted to black men, gay men, drinking excessively, drug use excessively, and because of those problems, I was banned from various clubs and bathhouses and nightclubs in the community. Again, these are similar characteristic traits that I have with Jeffrey Dahmer. Moving along, I'm charismatic, charming, attractive, innocent. Police disregarded my case because of my sexual orientation and biased by society, more often by the police themselves. So if they even knew that I was gay, it was a problem, and they would not take the crime seriously or incident seriously, and therefore I was overlooked for various things, and justice was never served, i.e. like me being molested. Justice was never served. So, and it's all because of my sexual orientation. That's a damn shame. Someone touched an innocent child. But because that child identifies as gay or someone who is queer, you don't want to look into the situation or problem? There's a stigma to this day in the NYPD. Jeffrey Dahmer was in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee has its own problems to this day. You know, but there's still that stigma within the NYPD. And I say that today because of the issues with New York City Pride and the New York City Police Department. And in 2020, when we had our pandemic, New York City did not. I actually have that on video in the previous episode of Gaytopix, so please reference that live at the Gay Pride Parade in season 1. But the police weren't there, and it made the parade so much better because there were no barricades, there were no people, no police blocking you from going here or there, and it didn't take you an hour to cross the street, you know, where it would normally take you less than a minute, you know. So there were so many things that were better than when the police actually took over. But unfortunately, because this is New York City, the police eventually had to come back and take over, you know, and do their thing at Pride, and it went back to the way it was, and it took you an hour to cross the street. I have those boy next door looks. Like I go unnoticed. You know, you wouldn't think twice about me if you saw me on the street. You know, that I was probably a mass murderer or mass shooter, or that I was probably committing murder or wanting to kill someone, you know. So, but the looks did help me. It's so late in the morning. The police did help me, not the police. My boy next door looks did help me eventually, because it got me and garnered my fame and celebrity status. You know, so I became a celebrity based off of my looks. I was a model. I was an actor. You know, I graced the cover of magazines and DVDs and calendars, and, you know, I had publicity stunts. I had photo shoots. I hosted nightclub events. I did all these things because of my boyish looks and attractive sexual appeal toward men, I guess. And with that, because I was in the spotlight because of my good looks, I had to be very social. And that is one thing that I can say, that I was different from everyone else that was in the entertainment industry. To this day, I engage with every single person that engaged with me, even if it was a Stan account. I don't know what that means, but Stan, I don't know, but even if it was a Stan account, because a Stan account is not a real account, I guess, but even if it was not a real account, I still engage with that person. Or if it was a person that I had blocked and created a new account and pretending to be somebody else, I was still engaging with that person. Most people in the entertainment industry, particularly the LGBTQ industry, gay Hollywood as we call it, don't interact with their fans. I did, and I did on a daily basis. That's what made me different, and that's what made me so saddened by the events that transpired to me becoming blacklisted and canceled way before the one-term, twice impeached former president of the United States. I can't hold a job, and the reason why that is, I just alluded to people with their hatred toward me, so I couldn't excel in something that I was actually really good at and really liked doing. So I couldn't excel at that in the adult entertainment industry. So I couldn't be famous anymore because people had, for spite, hated me or heard rumors about me and didn't want to associate with me because they didn't want to ruin their reputations and ruin their careers. So I was essentially thrown off the cliff. I also took jobs and had taken jobs that I did not want to be employed in. But I took those jobs because I needed to pay my rent. And that was the only reason why I was employed for the short time that I was because that I needed to pay the rent. And the jobs that I did want, in which I described in detail in a previous episode of Gaytopixmylife, the job interview, the jobs that I did want, I didn't get for frivolous things, small little details, like interrupting the interviewer before she actually asked me to sit down. You didn't ask me to sit down. So I'm asking you, can I sit down? And you're telling me I'm interrupting you. There was another one where I was employed for 3 days and they didn't pay me for 3 days because it was a trial run just to see how it would work out. And after the 3rd day, they let me go. And I was like, why did you wait till the 3rd day to do that? And I didn't get paid, mind you. So essentially, they got free labor. There was another one who was... Oh, you're not going to believe this. There was another one who was the manager at Boxer's Hell's Kitchen. And Boxer's Hell's Kitchen just opened up. This guy had been a fan of mine since my very first movie back in 1999. Or was it? Yeah, 98, 99. Whatever it was for La Mancha. But, Enrique Cruz. So, he was a fan since then. And he had followed me and my career ever since then. And we were connected. As I said, I talked to all my fans. And he was the manager at Boxer's Hell's Kitchen when Boxer's Hell's Kitchen first opened. I had just gotten my license in mixology and was looking for a job as a bartender. I had the body for it, so why not serve drinks shirtless? I would be tipped through my ass. But everywhere I went, I was denied because I did not have the experience. Although I had the degree, I did not have the experience. And I paid all that money to get that degree, not knowing that they wanted experience more than a degree. And they do that to this day. You have to have experience over a degree. The degree is really essentially nothing. So therefore, I was never hired, and I was really upset because I thought this guy was very loyal to me and was looking out for my best interest. And I told him, even though you may not want to consider me for a bartender position, I can still be a barback, I can still be a waiter, I can still clean up, I can still be a host, I can still do so many things in this bar, but you don't want to hire me? What? So, like the other job, he hired me for one day. One day. Some black lady, I guess she was the supervisor or something. I don't know. I don't even know why a lady was even a supervisor or someone, or maybe it was a friend of his or something like that, because I find it so hard to believe that a woman would be a supervisor or in charge or a manager of a gay club. I don't see that. So I'm assuming she was his friend and he was trying to test me, and he had me make a pineapple martini. When's the last time you heard somebody ask for that? I didn't even learn that in school. So I was like, wait, a pineapple martini? Where did that come from? There's not even pineapple slices in the bar, in the rail. So, like, what am I supposed to do? So I did the best I could with the knowledge that I had, and I made the martini with pineapple juice, and I left a little bit off of the glass, the martini glass, because as you know, when you move the martini glass, the drink can spill. So sometimes you have to actually sip it before you actually move it. So I left a little bit of space so she can actually pick up the drink and move it. This bitch had the audacity and disrespect to actually leave the drink there. Didn't even touch it. Didn't even say thank you. Didn't even leave a tip. She just left it there. So I drank it. You're not wasting alcohol for me. And you're not wasting alcohol on my fucking time, Bill. But that was the problem in itself. He waited till 4 o'clock in the morning for me to clean up and everything like that. It was my first day. I was going to obviously have mistakes, so that was understandable. And he didn't give me that second opportunity or second chance. And because of that woman not drinking that martini, he pulled me into, get this, he pulled me at 4 o'clock in the morning when the bar closed. He pulled me, not Boxers, it was another bar before he got into Boxers, but it was another bar, and he pulled me into the broom closet. And we were stuck literally like this, face to face. I couldn't say no more than 2 inches apart, and we were face to face, and I can smell his breath. And he told me it was not going to work. And I was like, well, you had me here till 4 o'clock in the morning. You're going to pay me. I'm not going to have this bullshit. You could have told me long ago that it wasn't going to work. You literally waited until this time to tell me because you had no one else to fill in. And that's a damn shame. Because if you thought that I was so bad, you would have never had me stay there that long continuing to make drinks. Asshole. And unfortunately, I never got the job. So, another significant characteristic trait of that of Jeffrey Dahmer is that I live alone in the ghetto. In a predominantly black neighborhood where I go unnoticed. No one notices me, or people do notice me because I have a dog, but people never speak to me, never associate with me, never say hello to me. I've even mentioned when Bill Clinton died that no one actually said sorry, and I had been living in this neighborhood for 8-9 years at the time, and they saw me, and they didn't see him, but no one ever, to this day, has ever said sorry for my loss. And that troubles me, because it makes me want to commit harm. Because how could you be so cruel and inhumane as to not even say sorry for someone suffering a loss of a loved one? Especially people who actually have dogs. Another characteristic trait that you may not know, because you don't see it, because I've never shown it on here. Why do I have the hiccups? Okay. Another characteristic trait of Jeffrey Dahmer and I have in common. God, the list goes on and on. We might as well be twins. Seriously, it's just like, wow. I am. It wasn't until Ryan Murphy's movie that I realized that he and I are literally. I could be his stunt double. I can literally be his understudy. I can be Jeffrey Dahmer's understudy. I can literally replace him. It's just uncanny. Like everything that I have in common with this serial killer. There's something else that a lot of people do not know, and I've never made public. I've made maybe several references to it, and I've made several hints to it. Like I said in previous episodes, that I'm hiding several disabilities, and that's one thing I love about the camera, is that I'm able to actually hide certain things that are not noticeable on camera, but in person they are. In particularly, I'm going to show you my scar, you see? And I can hide that, so you can't see that. There's also, my paralysis in my arm and my blindness in my eye. So I'm able to hide these things on the camera. But in person, you can see them. But one thing that I do hide, and I hide from the public, because once they find out that I actually do this, they're going to be knocking on my door like I was a drug dealer or something like that. Like, okay, can I get this? Can I get it? Can I get a Lucy? Can I get a Lucy? Can I get a Lucy? Just as my mother did, just as my grandmother did, just as my uncle did and my grandfather did, everyone essentially that I know of my family, or who was of my family, or who I suspected to be my family, smoked. And they smoked cigarettes. My grandmother died. I was told my grandmother died of stage 4 lung cancer. She didn't know she had cancer. She just thought she had the flu or something like that. But when she went to the emergency room, that's when she found out she had stage 4 cancer. However, the doctor had told her numerous times to stop smoking. And she smoked those cigarettes called Benson and Hedges. Benson and Hedges is the worst cigarettes you can smoke, because they have no filters. And they are just straight, like you literally might as well go to Cuba and like wrap your own cigarette and smoke it. Or you might as well just smoke a cigar, because they're just like Benson and Hedges. But yes, like the people in my family and Jeffrey Dahmer, I chain smoke. And I smoke one cigarette after the other, 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 after the other. And I can remember doing that because I learned to smoke because my mother used to make me light her cigarettes. because she was too lazy to like flick the lighter herself. So I would go to the stove, from her bedroom to the stove, and light her cigarette, smoke it to get that one inhale so it can light and stay lit, so I can walk back to the bedroom to give her the lit cigarette so it can stay lit. In a sense, making me smoke and getting addicted to the nicotine and getting that nicotine high, to the point where I was literally smoking the butts of her cigarettes in the ashtray. And every single piece that I saw, I was like, oh, there's an opportunity for me to inhale something. So I'm going to inhale it. I'm going to inhale it. And then it all went downhill once I joined the Army, because it was so relaxing, because that's how we relaxed while we were in war. Was we smoked, and we would sit there smoking, and the cigarettes would give me such a euphoric feeling that I felt so comfortable and so relaxed and in this hostile environment, that it became normal to me. But then when my anxiety kicks in and I'm troubled by certain situations and circumstances in which I face daily, and the racism and the betrayal and the disrespect and the belittlement and this series. So every time something happens, literally one right after the other. It's a very expensive habit and very hard to stop. But I must say, I'm glad I'm actually smoking cigarettes as opposed to smoking crack or heroin or any other kind of drugs, because that is not me. That is not me. I don't do that stuff. But recently I come to find out that the medication that I've been on since coming home from the Army and dealing with the PTSD, it's called a regimen. This regimen had kept me active, healthy, and productive in my life, as many of you known and seen in my movies. I was so muscular and so beautiful and so attractive and active. I ran 6 miles every single day. I can barely walk up the stairs now. Why? Because the doctors took me off of the medications. Now, why would you take me off a medication that was obviously helping me? And you know what that is? And they don't seem to realize this. Again, this is the white coats purposely doing this to their patients and purposely causing them more harm than they are help. I'm in pain. I take 8 Motrin a day as to 1 pill you can prescribe me a day. So you're forcing me into being addicted to Motrin. Not only that, because you're not prescribing the proper medication that was keeping me healthy, active, and alive and productive, you're encouraging me and influencing me to seek an alternative treatment like heroin or fentanyl or opioids or alcohol, because you're not giving me that 1 pill. Isn't that the whole thing in the oath? I shall do no harm. But you are doing harm because you're not actually doing your job or realizing the consequences of your actions. How can you just simply stop prescribing medication for someone who's been on medication for years, more than decades, since I was a child? How can you just simply stop that and think it's going to be okay? that person is obviously going to seek an alternative treatment to feel the way he was when he was prescribed that medication. I told you, reporters and journalists flick their pens when they make a point. I'm flicking this bitch 20 times because I made my point. And I still got more characteristic traits of those of Jeffrey Dahmer. I love scary movies. Jeffrey Dahmer apparently liked The Exorcist. And I never saw The Exorcist because I didn't like that whole throwing up thing, so I didn't like that. But I love Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees and Paranormal Activity. Oh, and the new series Chucky. Oh my God, this new series Chucky is amazing. I was like, if this movie was any better like that, I was like, this shit is the shit. And I love how he says, I love how Chucky says on each episode at the beginning, he says, on the previous episode of fucking Chucky. I love it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And his comments and things like that, it's just, oh my God, Chucky, what are you doing? Chucky! Another thing is, and is well known throughout this Gaytopix Original Series MYLIFE, is that I have very low self-confidence and very low self-esteem by the actions inflicted on me by other people. Same thing with Jeffrey Dahmer. He had low self-esteem and low self-confidence because people didn't like him because he was gay. And those he was attracted to, he couldn't get along with because they were moving and talking, and he wanted them still like a dummy. So it gave him low self-esteem. Moreover, his father was not accepting of his sexual orientation, nor was his mother. And it was not common for someone in the 70s to come out as gay or queer. So he had very low self-confidence and low self-esteem. Here's something you'll find very intriguing and interesting, that I also have similar characteristic trait with Jeffrey Dahmer. I too had sex with a deaf man. 2 to be exact. I remember, I think it was Victor and Eddie. Eddie was the first one. And this was before cell phones and everything like that. But eventually, cell phones came in, and I began to frequently see him in the bars and stuff like that. And then we would communicate through text. But prior to that, we would communicate just like they did in Dahmer the movie, with notes. So I would write whatever I was saying to the person, Eddie, who was deaf, and I would send him the note, and he would write back whatever it was. And the conversation would go on like that. But he can also read my lips, but it was difficult for me to read his lips. And he was trying to teach me, because I really liked him. And based on, what the energy that I was feeling from him, and I felt somewhat sorry for him because of his disability, and knowing that he was probably similar like me, where people stigmatized him and often shunned him because of his disability, and he was deprived of life in so many ways and aspects. And I met him in a bar, and we would write notes to each other and stuff like that. And he so bad wanted to have sex with me, and I told him I could not host at my house. And he was like, please, please, please. I guess because he was a fan, I don't know, but he was like determined to do it. And I was like, after so much, of him writing, like, please, 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 and begging, I was like, okay. So we went to those low budget hotels. I think it was called the Riverside Hotel on 14th Street and 10th Avenue. And it was an hourly rate thing. But we stayed in a singular room with a twin-size bed and the shower you had to share with everybody else. But we were in that room and we engaged in sexual, relations. And while we were doing so, it actually was feeling good. And I was moaning, and then I thought to myself, why am I moaning? He can't hear me. So I was like, should I do this? Like, what do I do? Like, how do I get him to know that I'm enjoying this, But there was no way I could actually tell him that I enjoyed it unless I wrote it down. And he's got his dick in my ass. I'm not trying to write, I'm enjoying your cock in my butt, So I just... After a while and realizing that the communication was just not there, we eventually separated. But like I said, I would eventually see him often in the same bar, and we would greet each other and say hi and stuff like that. But then I think he moved away or something, because I hadn't seen him for a long time. It's been really... Well, I haven't gone out. So... I don't know where he is to this day, but I hope he's well, and I hope he's, with the new Medicare thing, that he's got the hearing aids and can hear much better. Then there was Victor. Victor was another deaf guy. Now you see, that's how desperate I was to actually find someone that I can actually relate to that was gay, or that I can engage with in sexual activity with, or sexual relations with, or even be friends with. So I had no stigma against anybody. I just wanted somebody to speak to. Although I could not speak to a deaf individual, but I spoke, written. And with Victor, it was different. Instead of me writing the hand notes like I did with Eddie, I actually had to speak to an operator, and the operator would type whatever it was that I was saying and send it to Victor's phone. This is before text messages. So it came in like a note form or something like that, in a form of a text, but it wasn't a text. So I'm like talking to the operator, and I'm telling her, God, I loved your cock in my ass. God, I wish we could have sex again. And I'm like, I can't say that to an operator. It's like, she's gonna be baffled by the fact that I'm even speaking like this to a deaf individual, So I had to, PG-13, or G-rated, the conversation, just so she can put the message through to him and he can send it back to me, and so forth and so on. But eventually I was the one to stop the relationship as opposed to Eddie, because I wouldn't even call it a relationship. We're just briefly dating. But I had to stop it because I didn't like the third party operator intervening in my private conversations with someone that I was potentially going to, be involved with or date or potentially marry. And that was the end of him. like Jeffrey Dahmer, I also too know what's right from wrong. Jeffrey Dahmer was not insane. He just had an addiction to a certain gratification that he got off on, and there's nothing wrong with that, because there are people who have fetishes all over the place, and that was his fetish. The problem started was when he started to kill the people, and he didn't mean to kill them at first. He just killed them, by accident, and then it just kept going on and on until he eventually did strangle and kill them, and it just escalated from there. But at first, that was not his intent. So he just had an addiction to try to satisfy his gratification sexually. So he knew what was right from wrong. So he knew drilling acid into somebody's head was wrong. He knew having sex with a 15-year-old boy was wrong. So he knew all these things were wrong. He also knew that he was not insane. He just had a problem dealing with his sexual orientation and having people understand his sexual orientation. Like myself. I don't have any fetishes or anything like that. I haven't had sex since 2012, so there's not even a fetish or a gratification or even a thought of anything sexual. I don't have that. You can say I'm going through menopause, if you will. I don't feel that, because I think now at this particular age, as opposed to when I was younger, sex was a priority for me. But now at this age, it's no longer a priority for me, because there are other things that are more stimulating to me, like someone's mind and growth and success and credit report. So I can too say that I'm not insane. I'm just a gay, closeted gay man that people do not accept. Which made me closeted. But I wanted to show all these people that they were not going to keep me in the closet. So I came out in full force. And I came out and came into the adult entertainment industry. Oh, who's going to stop me, or who's going to say something about me doing this? My parents are dead. There's no family that I have. So there's no one to actually belittle me or like, what the fuck are you doing having sex on camera for the whole world to see? There's no one there to judge me, And I actually liked it. So I became famous, and I wish it would have went on further, but it didn't. Here I go talking about Poppy Sungo, as I always do. Like, it was so devastating to me. You have to understand that, because like the army, I was so successful, and then it all just went away. It all went away in a heartbeat. And the last thing that I have in common that I wrote here, I think, yeah, and then I go into the mistakes that and highlights that Ryan Murphy did in the series Dahmer, because there are several notable mistakes. But the last thing, because this is doing a Dahmer episode, remember, you're always in the mix with Gaytopix. This is doing a Dahmer episode. So the last thing that I have in common with, that I wrote here with Jeffrey Dahmer, is that I called the person the next day that I had sex with. So every single person that I've had sex with in my entire life, I called the next day, the day after, the day after that, the day after that. I always tried to keep in contact with that person. And that person never kept in contact with me. Never returned my call. Never returned my page. Never page. When we had beepers. Or never returned my voicemail. Or just simply ignored me as if I didn't exist. I don't exist now. I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. I'm essentially doing a Dahmer. I blend in with and seemingly go unnoticed. It's so uncanny, the characteristics and traits that I have that of a serial killer. And I'm questioning why the fact that I have so much animosity and frustration with how I've been treated in my life, that I have not committed a murder or committed a mass murder. Now you see what I just said? People are going to take that and shape that into the whole way they want to and say that I'm mentally insane. I'm telling the truth. That does not make me crazy. I'm just telling you how I feel. This is my life. This is my confessions. These are my truths. These are what I'm feeling. It doesn't mean that I'm actually going to commit it. And this is what I said. The white coats don't seem to understand that. And I'm tired of being victimized over and over and over and over and over again. It has to stop. Just because I have all these characteristic traits of Jeffrey Dahmer, and I'm going to in next episodes, in future episodes, I'm going to go into other serial killers that I also have similar characteristic traits in. But Jeffrey Dahmer is my first, and it's remarkable to me that I have so many characteristics and traits, and that I also resemble him. So I'm just baffled by the fact that I'm not a serial killer. I should have been one a long time ago. I should have. The reason why I don't like violence or murder or blood or anything of that nature, or gory or anything like that, or killing, is because I was in the army and I saw all that, and I did not like that. I cried every day, because there are bodies all over the place. I'm rescuing people from burning buildings. I'm rescuing people from being shot. I'm doing all these things. And yet, I have characteristic traits of those of a fucking murderer. God damn, if this series is not good. I encourage you to stay to the full to the ending of each and every episode. I know I go on and on and on and on and on, but there's always a story within the story. So there's always more to the actual story. So I encourage you to stay to the very end and listen to the whole story, because it only gets worse from here on in. And I'm not going to reveal what happens, but it gets worse from here on in. And if I tell you the cliffhanger to end all cliffhangers, it will leave you gagging. It will leave you jaw a drop. It will leave your mouth gaping open. It will leave you horrified. I mean, if me and Jeffrey Dahmer characteristic traits do not leave you horrified, I don't know what else will, but I know this will. So please stay tuned as the series continues. This Gaytopix Original Series My Life continues on because it gets better and better and better and better, and more horrific and more tragic and more traumatizing and dramatic. And with that said, I'm going to end this episode. This is Gaytopix My Life. I'm Kenny Cruz, your host. And this is Doing a Dahmer. These are real life stories, real life confessions, real life truths, actual real life events that I've experienced in my lifetime. Due to the graphic nature and sensitive language of this program, viewer discretion is highly advised. I'm your host, Kenny Cruz, and this is Gaytopix My Life, Doing a Dahmer. Remember, you're always in the mix with Gaytopix. See you soon. Same bat time, same bat channel.